Cameras are ever present in our lives, and while they can at times feel intrusive on our day-to-day activities, it does mean that with them always rolling, sometimes we're able to capture truly incredible events that would otherwise go unbelievable. So with that in mind, prepare to see some of the most shocking, frightening, and downright crazy events ever caught on film, as we take a look at the top 15 moments you wouldn't believe if not on video. Number 15. Train meets truck. Articulated lorries are responsible for transporting huge volumes of goods throughout the countries across the world and are crucial to ensuring supplies are delivered to where they're needed. They're also used to move large and bulky items to construction sites, and recently it's becoming increasingly common to see ones carrying components for wind turbines. When you see one of these on the road, your natural inclination is to give them as much space as possible, but they have to, on occasion, cross trickier intersections, where if something goes wrong, things can quickly become catastrophic. This footage, which was recorded in the town of WOULDN, Texas in 2021, shows just how bad they can become if things don't go to plan. A truck, which was carrying a single blade for a new turbine, had to make a right-hand turn across a railroad crossing and seemingly struggled to make it all the way across. Normally, bulky loads like this are routed away from awkward junctions like this, and it's not entirely clear why that didn't happen on this occasion. But the driver's worst fears came true when, as he sat trying to work out how to process, the warning lights for an approaching train began. He floored the throttle to try to clear the track, but it was too late, and the train slammed into the blade. It's a miracle that no one was hurt, and the incident caused extreme damage to the train and destroyed the truck and the turbine blade, leaving the insurance companies to decide whose fault it truly was. Number 14. Inner City Air Force. The idea of aircraft flying at low altitudes in urban areas is understandably quite a worrying sight for people around the world. But in Brisbane, Australia, it's a surprisingly common occurrence. Each year, the city holds the River Fire event to celebrate the end of a 3-week art festival. And as part of the celebrations, the Australian Air Force puts on an aerial display. This video was captured in 2018 and shows just how nerve-wracking their performance is, however, as it follows a Boeing C-17 practicing ahead of the main event. It soared between the skyscrapers before flying upwards out of the city, showing just how accurately these amazing machines can be flown. Of course, after this happened, there was an uproar and questions to the Air Force about how they could take such risks. But the truth is, no one was ever in any danger, because the pilots are so highly trained that precision flying like this is literally their day job. Nevertheless, you might expect that they'd take this as a sign that a display like this wasn't appropriate, but that wasn't the case at all. The following year, the Air Force organized a similar display at the end of the festival, which again saw a huge aircraft flying straight through the middle of the city. Number 13. Giant Snake Encounter. Green anacondas are the heaviest and one of the longest known species of snake on Earth, typically growing to a length of about 17 feet. It's a type of boa, which means that they aren't venomous but instead rely on their size and strength to surround their prey and squeeze the life out of them before eating them. And this has proven to be such an effective means of survival that they've changed very little in millions of years. Native to South America, their bulk means that it's fairly difficult for them to move swiftly or quietly on land. But when they're in the water, they're fast, agile, and are the apex predators. It can be easy when you're in the rainforest of Brazil to forget about anacondas and instead be more concerned by the other animals you might encounter, such as caiman or poisonous spiders. But this video proves that anacondas truly are a force to be reckoned with. As the fishermen trawl along a river for a catch, they spot something in the undergrowth and have gone to investigate. Tapping on the water with the paddles soon reveals a huge floating lump, which almost seems like a log at first, before you realize it's part of a snake. As they back up, the true size and bulk of the anaconda comes into view, and it seems to have just had a rather large meal. Otherwise, it almost certainly would have fought back against the fishermen who continually harassed it. Number 12. Jumping from a wind turbine. Base jumping is one of the most dangerous of all the extreme sports and requires precision timing as well as an enduring trust in your equipment. Jumpers will leap from vantage points and release their parachutes at the very last moment, which if done properly can lead to spectacular displays before a safe landing at the end. One of the reasons it's become more popular in recent years is because of the increasing prevalence of tall man-made structures that can be jumped from. And one of the types of buildings that are beginning to be more commonly seen worldwide are wind turbines. As we often look at them from quite a distance, it's difficult to gauge just how big some of them actually are. But in this footage from a French base jumper, you can see just how small humans are next to one. He begins by walking up the structure on the inside, where you'll also get a glimpse of the technology that's required to make the machines work, and then he emerges at the top before jumping back down to the ground. You'd surely never believe anyone was crazy enough to do this unless it had been videoed, and even for people used to base jumping, this is a particularly dangerous stunt to attempt, especially in windy weather when the blades are rotating. Number 11. Earthquake in the mountains. Normally, when you think of earthquakes, you imagine them being low down on the ground, causing wide regions to shake. But they also occur in mountain ranges at altitude, and this can make things far more treacherous, even at low magnitudes. In April of 2015, Nepal was struck by a magnitude 7.8 earthquake, and it soon became a humanitarian disaster. An avalanche was triggered on Mount Everest, which killed 22 people and led to a series of aftershocks that devastated the region. And in this clip, you'll see how impactful an event like this can be on the landscape. As the energy of the earthquake ripples across the ground, the mountains in all directions are affected, and the loose outer rock is dislodged and crumbles. It almost looks like as if the mountains themselves are collapsing one after another, and huge amounts of material and debris are thrown up into the air. There are plenty of theories of where the safest place to be during an earthquake is, whether it be hiding under a table or outside in an open place. But if this footage shows anything, it's that you certainly want to do all you can to be as far away from a mountain during an earthquake as possible. Number 10. Superboat Crash. The World Powerboat Championship is an annual event that visits a number of venues across the planet and pits the best boat racers against each other in a high-powered machine. Amazingly, the race boats are fitted with twin inboard 1100 horsepower engines, which allow them to reach speeds in excess of 160 miles per hour. But as they're essentially racing on an unpredictable surface, it's quite common for them to hit a wave that'll send them flying. Crashes at these events are just as entertaining as the races themselves, and luckily a huge amount of effort has been put into driver safety in recent years, so that no matter how huge the smashes are, the people on board will emerge unscathed. A great example of this took place in November of 2017 during the third race of the 37th annual Key West World Championship. Boat number 18 had far more speed than number 3 that was in front of it, and it rode up the back of it and was launched into the air. The white boat was left upside down in the water, surrounded by debris from the crash, but incredibly, both the driver and the throttleman radioed in to let everyone know that they were okay. Number 9. Inside a tornado. Tornadoes are the most powerful and violent weather formations on Earth, and while the Midwest of America is where the strong systems develop most often, this doesn't mean that they're the only place on the planet where they happen. In June of 2021, an extremely rare multiple vortex tornado struck villages in the Hodonín and Břeclav districts of the Czech Republic and resulted in the deaths of 6 people, as well as injuring at least 200 others. Rated as an F4 storm, it was the strongest ever recorded in the country and the most powerful in Europe since 2001, and was also one of the first to hit the continent since the advent of video cameras being present in such large numbers. As anyone who's ever experienced a tornado will know, the only choice you have is to try to get indoors and seek shelter. And this footage was recorded by 2 friends who did just that. The wind speeds are clearly increasing outside, and then the vortex of the tornado can be seen in the distance and approaching their exact position. It's complete mayhem as the storm passes over, with debris splattered across the windows. But fortunately, despite broken shards of glass being blown indoors and the destruction in all directions, the 2 people inside the house survived to tell the tale. Number 8. Active volcano. There are certain events that take place that truly show you the power of the natural world and our helplessness in the face of it, and volcanoes are definitely one of the most stunning examples of this. The Canary Islands is a volcanic archipelago in the Atlantic Ocean that's part of Spain, and it's been long known that there are several active mountains on the island. The last major eruption there took place in 1971, but this all changed in September of 2021 when a new event began to develop. technically classed as a flank eruption at the Cumbre Vieja volcanic ridge along the southern half of the most northwesterly island of the archipelago, called La Palma. It's soon become the most destructive eruption on record on the island. 2 months after beginning, the event was still ongoing, and it had necessitated the evacuation of more than 7,000 people. With lava covering more than 1,000 hectares of land, the flow of molten rock was 2.3 miles wide at its widest, and around 3.9 miles long before reaching the sea. Having destroyed 2,600 buildings, the lava split the main highway in half and created a brand new peninsula. And by the time the eruption ends, which could take many more months or even years, it's likely that the entire geography of the island will have been substantially changed for good. Number 7. Bull shark. Fishing is an extremely popular pastime around the world, both for catching food to feed the family or simply for the thrill of the chase. Sometimes, however, the person holding the line may not be the one who wants to catch the most. And one of the craziest examples of this in action is about to play out in front of your eyes. This footage was recorded in Myrtle Beach in South Carolina, where Sarah Brahm was fishing for her first time off the deck of her friend's home. To her complete amazement, she actually managed to catch a red drum, but she's only seen it for a split second and would never be able to reel it in. That's because just as she was about to land the fish, a bull shark leaps from the water and steals it from the line. This is the only species of shark that's known to swim upstream into fresh water, and also happens to be one of the most aggressive species of all, and it made light work of the small fish. Estimated to have been 6 feet long and weighing around 200 pounds, the shark was just a short distance beneath the deck. Luckily, its actions didn't knock anyone into the water, because if it had done, there would have been very little chance for them to escape. Number 6. Hailstorm. Storms can often seem to develop with very little warning at all, and while most of us may feel like we're able to endure even the windiest or the rainiest fronts, the realization that hailstones are falling will usually send even the toughest of people running to shelter. In January of 2020, this was undoubtedly the right reaction to a storm that swept over Canberra in Australia, because the destruction it was about to cause posed a real risk to human life. While the country is more commonly associated with hot weather and heat waves, residents are still subjected to intense storms too, and this one saw wind speeds of around 72 miles per hour. Hailstones began to fall that were as large as golf balls and were followed by huge amounts of unidentifiable debris as well, which would go on to cause more than 1,000 homes to lose power, millions of dollars worth of structural damage, and the need for hundreds of people to seek medical assistance. Car windshields in particular didn't stand a chance during the onslaught, and parking lots were full of vehicles with huge holes in their windows, which shows just how large and heavy the hail that fell truly was. Number 5. Scary landing. Air travel is now so commonplace that we barely think about the complexities of landing at an airport. But while all the major hubs around the world are fitted with the latest technology to ensure the process is as safe and as risk-free as possible, some of the more remote landing strips are still fraught with peril. Arguably, the most dangerous and difficult place in the world to land a plane is Paro Airport in Bhutan. Located around 3.7 miles from the city, it's the country's only international airport. While it's situated on flat land next to the Paro Chu River, it's surrounded by mountain peaks that reach an elevation of 18,000 feet. Not only do these pose a potential physical obstruction, but they also cause unpredictable wind patterns in the region. And it's for this reason that there are only around 24 pilots who are qualified to even attempt a landing there. With a single asphalt runway, it can only be used in clear weather during daylight hours and requires a series of angled maneuvers to line up properly for the final approach. Once they've touched down, however, the airport terminal is lavishly decorated with marble to provide the perfect welcome to the country. Number 4. Lake Maracaibo. We've all heard the saying that lightning never strikes twice, but that's not necessarily always the case. Electrical discharges during storms are normally few and far between, no matter where you are in the world. And even if you're in a hotspot for inclement weather, you definitely expect far more days a year without lightning than with it. There's one place where this is the reverse, however. Due to its unique geography, Lake Maracaibo in Venezuela sees huge storms forming above the water, and these result in intense lightning storms that occur, on average, around 160 nights per year, and will last for up to 9 hours on each of these days, with up to 40 lightning strikes per minute. Known as the Catatumbo lightning, named after the river that leads into the lake, there have been several attempts at explaining just why this happens, but the solution is actually relatively simple. The winds that blow across the lake meet those that have passed over the nearby Andes mountain range, and the changes in pressure along with the heat and moisture that's in the air are what causes the storms to develop. Number 3. Lion saving human. People have become more aware than ever about the number of wild cats that are kept in captivity around the world and the danger that they can potentially pose. Despite being taken from their natural habitats and held as pets, they retrain their natural instincts, and owners have to take extreme precautions, otherwise they may fall victim to them. The cats do, however, form a bond with their owners if they're treated well, and this can on occasion lead to them stepping in to protect people from other threats. In this footage, a zookeeper is doing what most people would think is crazy. He sat in a field playing with at least 6 lions. There are moments when his guard is clearly down and the lions could have taken advantage, but they're quite happy to relax and play with him. They aren't, though, the only wild cats in the enclosure, and in the background there's a leopard that's eyeing up the easy-to-catch human snack. When it sees its chance, it runs towards him, but amazingly, one of the lions catches it and stops it from attacking. It's all over in a matter of seconds and almost looks as if the cats are just playing with each other, but things very nearly ended terribly for the zookeeper in a way that happens to many inexperienced big cat owners each year. Number 2. Ship crashes into bridge. We're often told of the dangers of drinking and driving, and there are many families who unfortunately have lost loved ones or who know of someone who's been seriously injured by someone who sat behind the wheel after having too much to drink. It's simply unforgivable to take the risk, but there are vehicles that are far more dangerous to operate if you don't have your wits about you. And in February of 2019, a Russian captain who was drunk at the time caused a huge accident. Piloting the 6,000-ton cargo vessel, the Sea Grant, he had left the port of Busan in South Korea and was heading out of the harbor. According to reports, however, he had consumed a substantial amount of alcohol with his crewmates shortly prior to departure and managed to steer the ship in a completely wrong direction. Instead of having open water in front of him, he instead was facing the Gangwon Bridge and wasn't able to avert the inevitable disaster. The ship slowly moved forward and crashed into the bridge, not only causing severe damage to the vessel, but also tearing a 16-foot hole in the lower level of the crossing. Thinking he had gotten away with it and that no one would have noticed, the captain of the ship simply backed up after the accident, turned around and attempted to sail off, before the Coast Guard raced to catch up with him and arrested him on the spot. Number 1. Spider plague. After extreme rainfall, it's quite common for river levels to begin to rise and potentially to even flood, and this usually results in people clamoring to keep to dry land. Humans aren't the only animals that are impacted by these events, though, and there will also be animals fleeing for their lives too. This led to a rather horrifying sight in New South Wales in Australia in March of 2021, when floodwaters began rising from the Kinchela Creek. A local farmer woke up that morning and outside his window saw what appeared to be a brown carpet covering everything, and it was only when he looked closer that he realized that it was in fact a swarm of millions of spiders. They were crawling up the houses, the trees, and anything rising above the floodwaters, and it wasn't just spiders. Snakes, skinks, ants, and crickets had also tried to climb to safety. According to experts, it's quite common for spiders to behave like this in these situations, which must surely make you reconsider how you yourself will react, whether dry land is really where you'll want to be. Watch our binge-watching playlist if you'd like to watch all of our most popular top 15 videos. Grab a drink, grab a snack, and get ready to binge.